Senator Lindsey Graham says there is absolutely no limit to the acceptable number of civilian casualties in Israel's bombing of the Gaza Strip. Here he is on CNN.
Is there a threshold for you, and do you think there should be one for the United States government, at which the U.S. would say, let's hold off for a second in terms of civilian casualties? Is there a point at which you would start to question?
If somebody asked us after World War II, is there a limit what you would do to make sure that Japan and Germany don't conquer the world? Is there any limit what Israel should do to the people who are trying to slaughter the Jews? The answer is no. There is no limit. But here's what you need to do. Be smart. Let's try to limit civilian casualties the best we can. Let's put humanitarian aid in areas that protect the innocent. I'm all for that. But this idea that Israel has to apologize for attacking Hamas, who's embedded with their own population, needs to stop. The goal is to destroy Hamas. Hamas is creating these casualties, not Israel.
No limit. Absolutely no limit to acceptable civilian casualties. If they can just keep on bombing civilians, it's fine, totally fine. Lindsey Graham showing you how absolutely bloodthirsty he is. And this is after a refugee camp was bombed, not once, but twice. A refugee camp in Jabalia, which has killed hundreds of innocent civilians. The IDF has taken responsibility and says, well, yeah, we did it. Yes, of course we did it. Hamas was there. There's Hamas commander. There might have been tunnels too. Yeah. So, okay, but in order to get to Hamas, a Hamas commander, it's okay to kill a bunch of civilians? What happened to having, like, targeted strikes? I mean, honestly. But look, the official IDF position is, yes, it is okay to kill hundreds of civilians because of Hamas. That's what Lindsey Graham's position is too. And again, he said, well, we'll blame it on Hamas. It's Hamas that's doing it. They were using civilians as the human shields. That's right. They were embedding themselves with civilians. I mean, they warned people to leave. Okay, so the question I have on that is, where are they supposed to go? I mean, there's bombs everywhere. It's not a very big place. There's 2 million people that's stuck in an area that's about 140 miles squared. Not a very big place. And look, the population density of Gaza, and this is why there's so many civilian casualties, by the way, in this, is because there's about 15,600 people for every square mile of Gaza. Think about how small that is. The population density there in that area is very, very high, and yet you have this indiscriminate bombing from the IDF. And the other thing is, well, we warned them to get out. Okay, so when the IDF says, civilians, you got an hour to get out, and we're going to bomb the crap out of the area. Number one, they don't have a place to go. Number two, that's assuming that they even got the message. When you cut off power, electricity, when you cut off fuel, to run generators, how are they supposed to get that message? Were you sending them carrier pigeons? What are you doing? This is why this is such a bloodbath, and why there needs to be efforts towards a ceasefire. Look, it's not like I'm in favor of Hamas, right? The leadership, Hamas, the horrible things they did on October 7th, again, absolutely horrifying, right? But my God, there's got to be some sort of efforts towards ending the violence, ending the bloodshed. Look, here's the thing, though. You have people like Lindsey Graham and, yes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu both saying pretty much the same thing. Oh, this is war. Hamas must be completely destroyed. But wait a minute. You're not going to destroy Hamas for, if you continue to bomb them. For every innocent person that you kill in this bombing, that potentially creates more Hamas fighters. So what you're not doing is ending Hamas. You're just creating more Hamas fighters. And what are you going to do? Just keep bombing them, and and there are more fighters, and then you keep bombing more, and you keep bombing more until they're wiped out. Well, what have you done? In that case, you've done a genocide. You've wiped them all out. Oh, well, because they're all Hamas now. I don't want it to get to that point. Look, this is not an issue that you can solve with bombing. But see, here's the thing. All Lindsey Graham sees is dollar signs from his defense contractor friends. And that's the U.S.'s stake in this, okay? The United States government currently works on behalf of the defense contractors who want to sell more and more weapons to other countries. That's it. That's why in recent investor calls, these heads of these companies like Raytheon are salivating over the revenue potential of Biden sending more money to Israel. And Ukraine, by the way. And not only that, but again, going over to Israeli leadership, the right-wing government stays in power because of the fear of Hamas. So basically, for them to prop Hamas up by not ensuring peace in the region, because again, the conditions in Palestine, in the Palestinian territories, right, creates radicalism, breeds radicalism because of the, just horrible conditions of the people that live there. So yes, a lot of them do end up getting radicalized and do radical, terrible, terrorism. Okay? Now, again, if there's no peace in the region because of the far-right government of Israel and the allies like the United States and, our far-right evangelicals who think that, Israel's got to claim all the territory and get back to the biblical borders, right? So that we can have the end times where, ironically, the Jews are killed if they don't convert to Christianity, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to support that, and that involves, of course, eliminating the Palestinian people or forcibly removing them from the area in order to make that happen. And so this war, there are so many different sides that have come together in order to make basically life hell for the Palestinian people for their own ends. And again, you have innocent Palestinian people, and by the way, Hamas, it's kind of the same thing. They're justifying their own existence. I think the attack on October 7th was to justify their own existence as well. Oh, so obviously you need us to go after the Israelis and wipe them out. And so you obviously need us. You know why? Because they were losing popularity. Okay? Look, I'll get to a poll on that one. But first, let me get to the United States, because we're talking about Lindsey Graham. This war is not something that Americans want. We don't want to see this happen. Lindsey Graham is out of step with the majority of the people. According to a recent Data for Progress poll, 66% of voters strongly agree, or some would agree, that the U.S. should call for a ceasefire and a de-escalation of violence in Gaza, and leverage its close diplomatic relationship with Israel to prevent further violence and civilian death. 66%. It's a two-thirds majority. 80% of Democrats, 57% of independents, and even a majority, 56% of Republicans, all agree, yes, let's do a ceasefire. Ceasefire. Now to get to the poll of the people living in Gaza. This was back in July from the Washington Institute. Turns out a majority of them did not want to violate the ceasefire with Israel. In fact, about 62% of Gazans said, let's maintain the ceasefire with Israel. Half of them, by the way, in the same poll, agreed with the following proposal. Hamas should stop calling for Israel's destruction and instead accept a permanent two-state solution based on the 1967 borders. So that's half of Gazans polled are like, stop calling for the destruction of Israel, please. That's not helping us. Furthermore, when it comes to Hamas itself, 70% of Gazans would prefer to have the Palestinian Authority, take over the administration of the territories instead of Hamas. And that's despite, by the way, about just over half of all Palestinians having a favorable view of Hamas. So, look, you got a clear majority of people who are frustrated with the current path of their leadership and would have preferred keeping peace with Israel. These are the people that are being bombed, while Lindsey Graham, with money signs in his eyes, are saying they all deserve collective punishment for what Hamas did, I think, to continue its own relevance as they see their own popularity start to slip. So this collective punishment it is a war crime. But as we know, Lindsey Graham, a lot of the war hawks that support him and are like him, they have never met war crimes that they didn't approve of.